I started Fort Hays in 1952, and they didn't have any art classes at Victoria High School, but I have always liked art. And I enrolled at Fort Hays, but all they were doing then was abstract art. With no background in art, I couldn't understand it, and I kept trying to do some realistic stuff, and I didn't get very good grades at it, so I transferred over to industrial arts, which meant that I'd learned how to weld and how to make furniture and stuff like that. It was fabrication, working with my hands. In that procedure, I learned to do drafting, and out of that, I decided that I had wanted to be an architect. The only architecture program that I knew of then was at K-State. And so I decided to enlist in the Army and hoped I would survive it, because a lot of my friends and a lot of people that I knew, they were in the service too then. So during basic training, the CO and the rest of the honchos there stood out in the front. They had us all out in front of the building there. Said, "We need somebody who has some architecture training, and need volunteers." So I stepped out, and a couple other guys did too. And they said that we want you to design a TI&E board, and then explained about Trooper Information Education Board. And I immediately had some ideas. And so I sat in there and I started designing and drawing. And they took me into the front office and they said, "Knoll, this design you got here," said, "that's exactly what we want. And do you know how to build it?" "Sure, I can build it." I did the job. I finished the whole thing. I ended up being the company carpenter at the NCO school, non-commissioned officers training school there. Then I was able to get enough courage and I went back to K-State and I studied architecture, but in the process of studying architecture, I realized I liked my art classes a lot more. Drawing and all that, you know, that's fine, but architecture, that wasn't for me. And I liked the art classes, and then I liked the drawing and painting, and then when I got into ceramics, boy, I tell you, I love ceramics. But then I went to Fort Hays during the holidays, and I went down through, and I thought that they had a better program there. I liked it. The wisest move I could have ever made, because I went there and I took pottery classes under Joel Moth, and then I ended up taking some sculpture classes under John Burland. And John Burland was a Navy veteran, just a few years older than me, and he taught me the basics. I finished the bachelor's in 1962. That's when I was starting on the sculpture. I still had a little bit of GI Bill left, and so I decided to stay on for the master's. I made it through, and then I had my own studio in Hays in East 11th Street in 1965, 64 and 65. And then in the fall of 1965, I went to Iola, and I taught at the combined high school community college there for 4 years, and then full time. And I just had a telephone call and a letter from the director of the Thomas H. Bolus Fine Arts Center, and they want me to gather up as much of my stuff. They're having a 50th anniversary celebration, and they're going to send me some money to have an exhibit down there. Wowee! I'm going to be 80 years old in October. So that's my excuse. See, that's the excuse why I don't have the energy. But I'm alive. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life whining and crying about it. I'm damn lucky to be alive. I play golf. I've got some good friends. I go to Victoria every once in a while. When I pick up the daily paper there, God darn, I read the obituary, and I read the obituary in the paper every day, and you guys know why, just to see that I'm not on it. I'm just hoping that this way I'll be able to see some of these things through, you know. There's always that reason for being optimistic. I like to think that my mind works a little bit longer, a little more oftener in the optimistic phase. I would like to think so anyway.